Have you ever found yourself at the end of a long day, surrounded by productivity apps and completed to-do lists, yet feeling strangely empty, as if the hours slipped through your fingers without meaning? In our modern world, we're taught to see time as something to conquer, to pack every moment with tasks, optimize every minute, and hustle our way towards some distant finish line. But what if this constant drive to do more is actually pulling us further away from the very richness we seek? There's a quiet frustration brewing beneath the surface of our busy lives, a sense that no matter how much we achieve, time still feels scarce and life feels rushed. We measure our days in outputs and efficiencies, yet we're left feeling drained rather than fulfilled. But what if I told you there's an ancient philosophy that offers a radically different way to relate to time, one that doesn't require more apps, more hustle, or more grinding? The Stoics, thinkers from over 2,000 years ago, understood something about time that modern productivity culture completely misses. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, captured it perfectly when he wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." That single line stops me every time. He isn't talking about filling more hours with work. He's talking about living with depth and presence. While we're busy trying to manage time, the Stoics were focused on how to truly inhabit it. Throughout this video, we're going to explore key Stoic principles that reframe our entire relationship with time. We'll delve into Memento Mori, the practice of remembering our mortality, not as something morbid, but as a way to clarify what truly matters. We'll examine Amor, Fati, the love of fate, which teaches us to embrace even the delays and disruptions we usually resent. And we'll unpack the dichotomy of control, which helps us focus our energy only on what we can influence, freeing us from the anxiety of trying to manage the uncontrollable. This isn't about adding another productivity hack to your routine. It's about shifting your perspective in a way that transforms how you experience your days, your work, and your life. So if you're tired of feeling like time is always slipping away, join me as we uncover what the Stoics understood about time and how their wisdom can help us live more fully, calmly, and meaningfully today. Modern productivity treats time like a container to fill. The Stoics saw it as a river flowing past. We live in a culture obsessed with metrics, with packing every available slot in our calendars, with measuring our worth by how many tasks we can cross off a list. But this approach turns time into just another commodity to be managed and maximized, something we try to control and hoard. The Stoics, particularly Seneca, offered a profoundly different perspective. They understood that time is the one truly non-renewable resource. You can lose money and make it back. You can fail at a task and try again tomorrow. But a moment that passes is gone forever. It can never be retrieved or reused. Seneca drives this point home in his letters when he writes, "People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy." He's pointing out this incredible paradox. We are so careful with our material possessions, yet we fritter away our hours and days on things that add no real value to our lives. The modern focus is almost entirely on quantitative output. How much did I get done? The Stoic focus, by contrast, is on qualitative use. How well did I live? How virtuously did I act? How deeply did I engage? This is the core of the shift. It's not about how many emails you answer in an hour. It's about whether your work was done with integrity and purpose. It's not about cramming your weekend with activities. It's about whether those activities brought you genuine connection and joy. This constant pressure to optimize and fill every second creates a low hum of anxiety. Think about the feeling you get when you constantly check the clock. watching the minutes tick down toward your next meeting, mentally calculating how much you can squeeze into the gap. Or the stress of time tracking apps that monitor your every activity, turning your life into a spreadsheet of efficiency. This mindset doesn't create a sense of accomplishment. It creates a feeling of never being enough, of always being behind. The Stoic alternative is to release that grip on the clock and instead focus on the meaning behind your actions. When you do that, you naturally begin to shed the trivial pursuits that clutter your days, the endless scrolling, the busy work, the meetings that could have been an email, and you make space for what truly matters: deep work, real conversation, quiet reflection, and acts of service. This isn't about being lazy or unproductive. It's about being purposeful. It's the difference between being busy and being alive. A day spent checking off 30 minor tasks might feel productive, but a day spent fully engaged in one meaningful project, or being completely present with a loved one, is a day that leaves a lasting imprint on your character and your memory. It's a day without regret. So I want you to pause for just a moment and consider this. Where in your life right now are you merely filling time rather than truly enriching it? Is it that hour you spend mindlessly on your phone each evening, or the way you rush through a meal to get to the next thing? Identify one single area where you're treating time as a container to be topped up, and ask yourself what it might look like to treat that same time as a precious, flowing gift instead. How often do you rush through today just to get to tomorrow? We're so conditioned to live in the future, planning the next project, worrying about next week's deadlines, dreaming about some future vacation, that the present moment becomes little more than a blur we have to endure on the way to something else. Modern productivity culture worships at the altar of planning. We fill our digital calendars with color-coded blocks, set 5-year goals, and measure our success by how closely we stick to the roadmap we've created for our lives. But in doing so, we often sacrifice the actual experience of living for the mere anticipation of it. The Stoics offered a powerful antidote to this constant forward rush. They practiced something called prosoph, which translates to attention or mindfulness. This wasn't about empty-minded meditation. It was about bringing your full focus and conscious awareness to whatever you are doing, right here, right now. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, constantly reminded himself of this in his private writings. He said, "Give yourself a gift, the present moment." And in another passage, he advises, "Do every act of your life as if it were your last." This isn't a call to morbid intensity, but rather an invitation to profound engagement. He's telling us to stop dividing our attention and to pour all of ourselves into the single task in front of us, whether that's writing a report, listening to a friend, or even just walking down the street. Think about the modern habit of multitasking. We pride ourselves on answering emails during a meeting, listening to a podcast while cooking dinner, and making a mental shopping list while playing with our kids. We call this efficiency. The Stoics would call it a tragic dilution of life. When you split your attention, you're not really doing any of those things well, and you're certainly not enjoying them. You're just skimming the surface of your own experiences. The Stoic alternative is to do one thing at a time, and to do it with full intention. Imagine drinking your morning coffee and actually tasting it, noticing the warmth of the mug, the rich aroma, the slight bitterness, instead of gulping it down while scanning the news on your phone. Imagine having a conversation where you're truly listening to the person in front of you, rather than just waiting for your turn to talk or thinking about what you need to do next. This is where we find real satisfaction, not in checking off more boxes, but in the depth of our engagement with each box. The reward is in the doing itself, not just in the having done. So I want you to bring this down to earth today. Identify one routine activity you normally rush through or treat as an obstacle on your path to the next thing. Maybe it's your commute, washing the dishes, or that weekly report you always dread. For just this one time, I invite you to try doing it the Stoic way. Give it your complete and undivided attention. If it's the dishes, feel the warmth of the water, notice the patterns of the bubbles, and be fully there in that simple act. You might discover that the task you always resented becomes a small island of calm in a rushing river. We make 5-year plans, but the Stoics advised focusing only on what we can influence right now. This might be one of the most challenging yet liberating shifts in thinking we can make. Our entire modern approach to productivity is built on a foundation of control, the belief that with the right system, enough effort, and a detailed enough calendar, we can engineer the future we desire. We map out our careers years in advance, we pack our schedules to the minute, and we get genuinely upset when a flight is delayed or a meeting runs long, as if the universe has personally insulted our plan. The Stoics, however, saw this for what it is, a beautiful but ultimately exhausting illusion. They understood a fundamental truth about existence: the future is inherently uncertain. No amount of worrying, planning, or effort can change that. The great teacher Epictetus, who was born a slave and faced immense uncertainty his entire life, gave us the perfect tool to navigate this reality, the dichotomy of control. He made a simple, profound distinction. Some things are up to us: our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions. In short, our own voluntary choices and actions. And some things are not up to us: our body, our property, our reputation, our job, the weather, the actions of other people, and of course, the passage of time itself. His core instruction was to focus all of our energy exclusively on the first category, what is up to us, and to accept the second category with grace, because it is not ours to command. This isn't a philosophy of passivity, it's a philosophy of focused action. It doesn't say, don't try. It says, try your absolute best, but tie your happiness and peace of mind to the quality of your effort, not to the outcome. Think about the frantic scheduler who gets furious at a traffic jam. They are trying to control the flow of cars, the traffic lights, the behavior of other drivers, none of which are within their power. The Stoic response is to acknowledge the reality of the traffic jam, to understand that getting angry won't clear the road, and to focus only on what is within their control, perhaps using the time to listen to an audiobook, to practice patience, or to simply call ahead and apologize for being late. Their peace is maintained because their worth isn't tied to an on-time arrival. It's tied to how they handle the delay or consider a project at work. You can control your preparation, your research, the hours you put in, and the care you take. But you cannot control a last-minute change in company strategy, a key client getting sick, or a competitor launching a similar product. Modern productivity culture might tell you to work even harder to control those external factors, leading to burnout and anxiety. The Stoic approach is to pour your heart into your preparation, present your work with confidence, and then accept the outcome with equanimity, because the final result was never truly yours to decide. This acceptance of unpredictability is not weakness, it's a profound strength. It's the difference between being a leaf blown about by the wind of external events and being a tree that stands firm, its roots deep in its own character, regardless of the weather. So I want you to take a moment for a little Stoic audit. What is one thing you are currently trying to control that is actually not up to you? Is it the opinion a certain person has of you, the success of a venture that depends on other people's choices, maybe even the health of a loved one? Just identifying it and consciously placing it in the category of not up to me can release a tremendous amount of mental pressure, freeing your energy for what you can actually influence, your own next move. Modern productivity avoids death. Stoics embraced it as a guide. This might sound jarring at first in our contemporary world. We're encouraged to think positively, set ambitious goals, and look toward a bright future. The idea of consciously contemplating our own end seems counterintuitive, even morbid. But the Stoic practice of Memento Mori, which translates to remember you must die, was never about fostering fear or morbidity. It was perhaps the most practical tool they had for creating a life of immediate meaning and purpose. They didn't see death as a distant, abstract horror to be ignored, but as a close and certain advisor that could clarify every single choice. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the vast Roman Empire, constantly reflected on this in his private meditations. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." He wasn't being dramatic, he was being intensely practical. He used the awareness of his own mortality as a lens to instantly distinguish between what was truly important and what was merely noisy distraction. If this could be your last day, would you really spend it resentfully scrolling through social media, arguing about politics online, or worrying about what a stranger thinks of you? Or would you write that letter to a friend, have that difficult but necessary conversation with kindness, or simply sit quietly and watch the sunset? This practice collapses the distance between our grand, future ambitions and the humble reality of the present moment. It forces a radical honesty. We often create bucket lists, grand catalogues of experiences we want to have before we die, driven by a fear of missing out. There's nothing wrong with travel or adventure, but the Stoic would point out that this can become just another form of future tripping, another way to postpone living fully today. Stoic intentionality isn't about skydiving in Bali. It's about bringing the depth and presence you imagine you'd have in Bali to your morning commute, your lunch break, or doing the laundry. It's about recognizing that the opportunity for virtue, for connection, for courage is available right now, in your current circumstances, without any need for a plane ticket. The person who remembers their death isn't paralyzed, they are energized. They don't have time for petty grievances, for holding grudges, for postponing joy. They understand that time is too precious to waste on resentment, too short to spend trying to impress people they don't even like, and too valuable to invest in anything that doesn't align with their deepest values. This week, I want you to experiment with this powerful Stoic shift. Don't think of it as something dark. Think of it as a clarifying light. For just a few moments each day, perhaps when you first wake up or as you're planning your day, gently remind yourself, my time here is limited and uncertain. Then ask yourself this simple, profound question. Knowing that, how does it change what I choose to focus on today? Does that meeting seem as urgent? Does that minor irritation deserve my energy? Does that project truly matter? Let this awareness, not a productivity app, be your truest guide. Where productivity sees obstacles, Stoics saw opportunities for practice. This is the heart of Amor Fati, a Latin phrase that translates to a love of one's fate. It's the radical notion of not just enduring what happens to you, but embracing it, welcoming it, and even feeling gratitude for it. While the phrase was popularized much later by the philosopher Nietzsche, the idea is deeply Stoic. Epictetus, who knew a thing or two about hardship, advised his students to approach life with this mindset. He said, "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens, then you will be happy." He's not telling us to be passive or to give up on our goals. He's inviting us to shift our relationship with reality itself. Instead of fighting against the current of events, we learn to swim with it, recognizing that the obstacle itself is part of the path. Modern productivity has a very low tolerance for what it calls wasted time. A delayed train, a long queue, a cancelled meeting, an internet outage, these are all seen as failures in the system, as holes in our efficiency that need to be patched. We feel a sense of frustration, a rising anxiety that we are falling behind, that precious minutes are being stolen from us. We pull out our phones, desperate to fill the void, to recapture that lost productivity. The Stoic response is completely different. They would say that no time is truly wasted if you know how to use it. An interruption isn't a theft of your time, it's an invitation to practice a virtue. A delay isn't a problem, it's a pop quiz in patience and equanimity. That 20-minute wait at the doctor's office, instead of scrolling through emails in a state of agitated impatience, you have a choice. You can see it as a gift, 20 minutes of enforced quiet. You can use it to observe the room around you, to practice being present without an agenda. You can use it to think deeply about a single idea or simply to rest your mind. You are not losing time. You are gaining an opportunity to practice a skill that is far more valuable than crossing another task off a list, the skill of inner calm. A project that gets derailed by a colleague's mistake, the productivity mindset might trigger blame, anger, and stress about the lost hours. The Amor Fati mindset asks, how can I love this turn of events? What does this situation allow me to practice? Perhaps it's an opportunity to practice forgiveness, or clear communication, or creative problem solving under new constraints. The event itself is neutral. It is our judgment of it that causes our suffering. By choosing to love our fate, even the frustrating, inefficient, and messy parts of it, we disarm the event of its power to disturb us. We transform what was a source of stress into a source of strength. So I want you to try a small but profound exercise in Amor Fati. Think back to a recent minor inconvenience you experienced. Maybe you were stuck in traffic, your computer froze, or you had to wait much longer than expected for your coffee. Now, consciously reframe that event. Instead of seeing it as wasted time, see it as assigned time. Time assigned to you by the universe to practice a specific virtue. What did it allow you to practice? Patience, resilience, humor. The simple act of reframing it in this way can change your entire experience, not just in retrospect, but for every interruption that comes your way from now on. Stoic time management isn't about doing more, it's about focusing only on what you can change. This is where the famous Stoic dichotomy of control transforms from an abstract philosophy into an incredibly practical tool for daily life. We've been conditioned to believe that being productive means controlling outcomes, hitting every deadline, achieving every goal, sticking rigidly to our plans. But this mindset sets us up for a constant cycle of stress and disappointment, because the truth is, we have shockingly little control over the external results of our efforts. The ancient teacher Epictetus, in his core text the Enchiridion, lays it out with unflinching clarity. He writes, "Some things are within our power, while others are not." Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, our reputation, our office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. When we apply this lens to time management, everything shifts. We stop measuring our worth by how many items we check off a list that is constantly being disrupted by forces beyond our control, and we start measuring it by the quality of our effort and the integrity of our intentions. Let's make this concrete. Imagine you have a crucial project deadline. The modern productivity response is to create a detailed plan, block out time, and push hard to meet that date. But what happens when your internet goes down for a day, or a key team member calls in sick, or your child gets sent home from school? Suddenly, the plan is in shambles. The typical stress response is to panic, to get angry at the circumstances, to work frantically through the night trying to regain control, and to ultimately feel like a failure for being late, even if the delay was caused by something entirely outside your influence. You tie your self-worth to an outcome you could not command. Now contrast that with the Stoic response. You would still create the plan and block out the time. You would still put in your very best effort. That part is entirely within your control. But when the internet fails, you acknowledge this is not up to you. Instead of spiraling into frustration, you focus on what is still within your power. Maybe you use the offline time to sketch ideas on paper, to read relevant research you downloaded, or to take a walk to clear your head and return with fresh perspective. When the deadline is missed, you communicate proactively, adjust your plan based on the new reality, and accept the outcome without internalizing it as a personal failing. Your peace of mind remains intact because it was never tied to the external result in the first place. It was anchored in your own virtuous action. This principle applies to almost every time-related anxiety we face. Worrying about a future presentation, you can control your preparation and practice. You cannot control the mood of your audience or the questions they might ask. Stressing over a long travel delay, you can control whether you use that time to read, to rest, or to call a loved one. You cannot control the mechanical issue with the plane. Feeling guilty about not spending enough time with your family, you can control being fully present and engaged when you are with them. You cannot control a work emergency that demands your attention. This practice of categorization is a liberating mental habit. It acts like a filter, catching all the chaotic events of the day and sorting them into two piles. The pile where your energy and attention can make a real difference, and the pile where your worry is not only useless but actively harmful to your tranquility. By consciously directing your effort only toward the first pile, you reclaim a massive amount of mental bandwidth that was being wasted on fruitless anxiety. You become more effective, not because you're doing more, but because you're focusing better. Your actions are no longer diluted by the exhausting attempt to manage the unmanageable. So let's put this into practice right now. Bring to mind one specific time-related stressor that's been nagging at you lately. Maybe it's an upcoming performance review, the pressure to finish a personal project, or simply the feeling that there are never enough hours in the day. Now take a moment to mentally dissect it. Apply the Stoic dichotomy. Ask yourself, what elements of this situation are truly 100% within my control? Your preparation, your attitude, the first draft, and what elements are not within my control? Your manager's mood, the market conditions affecting your project's relevance. The fact that a day is only 24 hours long, just the act of consciously placing each part into its proper category can bring an immediate sense of relief. It draws a clear line in the sand, freeing you to pour your best self into the arena you can actually influence, and to release the rest, not with resignation, but with the wise understanding that it was never your burden to carry in the first place. Busyness isn't a virtue. Stoics considered leisure essential for a good life. In our modern world, we wear exhaustion like a badge of honor, equating packed schedules and overflowing inboxes with importance and success. We've created a culture where saying, "I'm so busy," is a point of pride, and taking a break can feel like an admission of laziness or a lack of ambition. But the Stoics, particularly Seneca, would look at our frantic pace with deep concern, not admiration. They championed a concept known as otium, a Latin term that translates to purposeful leisure. This wasn't about idle lounging or mindless entertainment. It was about the intentional, sacred use of free time for activities that nourish the soul, deepen understanding, and restore our capacity for virtue activities like reading, contemplation, writing, walking in nature, or engaging in meaningful conversation. Seneca drew a sharp and vital distinction in his letters. He wrote, "Leisure without study is death. It is a tomb for the living man." He wasn't warning against relaxation. He was condemning aimlessness. For him, true otium was the opposite of laziness. It was an active, engaged state of being where one could step off the treadmill of daily demands and attend to the most important work of all, the development of one's character and wisdom. He saw this time not as unproductive, but as the highest form of productivity for a human being. Consider the stark contrast with our current burnout culture. We're encouraged to optimize every second, so even our so-called leisure is often just another form of performance or consumption. We call it unwinding by binging a television show while simultaneously scrolling through social media, or we engage in self-care that involves buying products and following rigid routines we found online. Our weekends become a frantic race to cram in errands, social events, and family obligations, leaving us more exhausted by Sunday night than we were on Friday afternoon. This isn't leisure, it's busyness in disguise. The Stoic practice of otium would look entirely different. It might be 30 minutes spent sitting quietly with a book of philosophy, not to extract a productivity tip, but to truly ponder a single idea. It could be a long walk without a podcast in your ears, simply observing the world and allowing your thoughts to settle. It might be journaling about your actions from the week, not to critique your output, but to reflect on whether you acted with justice, courage, and kindness. These activities don't look productive on a spreadsheet. They don't generate immediate revenue or clear a task list. But their value is immeasurable because they recharge the very source from which all effective action flows, a calm, clear, and purposeful mind. They are the necessary counterbalance to the active life, the deep breath that allows you to dive back into your duties with renewed strength and clarity. This creates a fascinating paradox that challenges everything hustle culture teaches us. The Stoics argue that to be truly effective in the world, you must regularly withdraw from it. To be fully engaged in your work, you must be fully disengaged in your rest. Constant doing without periods of deliberate being leads to a depletion of your inner resources. You become brittle, irritable, and less capable of handling challenges with wisdom. Purposeful leisure, on the other hand, is what fills the well back up. It's the space where creativity is born, perspective is gained, and resilience is built. It's not a deviation from a productive life, it is the very foundation of one. So I want to offer you a simple but profound reflective prompt. Take an honest look at how you spend your downtime. When you finally step away from your work, what do? Is your leisure truly restorative? Or is it just another form of productivity? Does scrolling through your phone leave you feeling refreshed or more drained? Does your weekend schedule feel like a gift or an obligation? Ask yourself this. If Seneca were to observe a typical day of your life, would he see a person wisely using otium to cultivate a good character? Or would he see someone lost in a frenzy of activity, mistaking motion for meaning? The answer might just change how you choose to spend your next free hour. Modern time is personal and urgent. Stoic time is cosmic and patient. We live our days tethered to the insistent ticking of our personal clocks, deadlines for projects, countdowns to vacations, the relentless pressure to achieve our individual goals before time runs out. This creates a kind of temporal claustrophobia, where our world shrinks to the size of our own ambitions and anxieties. The Stoics, however, invited us to lift our gaze from our wristwatches and look up at the stars. They saw human life not as a solitary race against the clock, but as a single, small note in a vast symphony of nature that has been playing for eons and will continue long after we are gone. This shift in perspective is perhaps one of the most powerful antidotes to the rush and worry of modern life. Marcus Aurelius, while commanding armies and administering an empire, constantly reminded himself of this cosmic scale. He wrote in his Meditations, "Think of the universal substance, of which you have a very small portion, and of universal time, of which a short and indivisible interval has been assigned to you, and of that which is fixed by destiny, and how small a part of it you are." He wasn't trying to make himself feel insignificant. He was trying to cultivate a profound sense of humility and patience. When you truly absorb the fact that you are a brief guest in a universe that is billions of years old, the urgency to have everything figured out by next Tuesday begins to evaporate. Your personal deadlines, while still important, are placed in their proper context. They are small stones in a very large river. This philosophy directly encourages us to align our personal rhythms with the larger, slower, and more reliable rhythms of the natural world. Nature operates on cycles, not countdowns. A tree does not fret about growing an inch tomorrow. It grows according to the seasons, drawing sustenance from the soil and the sun at its own necessary pace. A wound heals not according to our impatient schedule, but according to the body's own intricate and unhurried process of repair. We, however, create artificial environments that defy these natural rhythms. We work under fluorescent lights that ignore the setting sun. We expect instant responses to emails that disregard time zones, and we get frustrated when a skill we want to learn doesn't materialize in a week. This constant fight against natural time is a primary source of our stress. The Stoic alternative is to stop swimming against the current and to instead learn its flow. This means recognizing that some processes simply cannot be rushed. Building deep expertise in a field takes years, not weeks. Forging a trusting relationship requires consistent, patient investment. Personal healing from a loss or a failure has its own timeline, and trying to shortcut it only leads to more pain. When you accept this, you trade the anxiety of impatience for the resilience of patience. You understand that your life, like a season, has its own period of planting, growth, harvest, and rest. You stop trying to harvest in the spring. To truly feel this shift, you need to experience it directly. It's one thing to intellectually understand the concept of cosmic time. It's another to feel it in your bones, and there is no better way to do that than to intentionally immerse yourself in a natural environment that operates on this grander timescale. Take a walk in an old growth forest and look at trees that have been standing for centuries. Their very presence whispers a different story about time, one of gradual growth, resilience through storms, and silent, patient existence. Stand on a beach and watch the waves roll in, each one a reminder of the moon's pull and the planet's turn, forces that have been in motion long before you arrived and will continue long after. Look up at a starry night sky and consider the light from those stars that has been traveling for thousands of years just to reach your eyes. These experiences have a way of recalibrating your internal clock. The urgent email waiting in your inbox feels smaller. The minor setback of the day loses its sting. You are reminded that you are part of something immense and beautiful, and that your worth is not measured by your quarterly output, but by how gracefully you play your small part in this eternal dance. So I encourage you this week to deliberately carve out an hour for this kind of perspective-shifting practice. Leave your phone behind, find a patch of nature, a park, a trail, a lake, even your own backyard, and simply be there. Don't exercise or multitask, just observe. Notice the slow, deliberate pace of it all. Let the vast, patient time of the natural world quiet your own hurried, personal time, and carry that sense of spacious calm back into your daily life. Productivity plans for best cases. Stoicism prepares for worst cases. This fundamental difference in approach is perhaps one of the most immediately practical tools the Stoics offer us for navigating the unpredictable reality of our daily lives. Modern productivity culture is overwhelmingly optimistic. It encourages us to visualize success, set ambitious goals, and map out detailed plans, assuming that everything will go smoothly. There's nothing inherently wrong with optimism, but when it's our only strategy, we set ourselves up for a tremendous amount of shock, frustration, and wasted energy the moment things inevitably go off the rails. The Stoics countered this with a powerful mental exercise called Premeditatio Malorum, which translates to the premeditation of evils. This wasn't about pessimism or expecting the worst to happen. It was about inoculation. By mentally rehearsing potential setbacks, difficulties, and failures before they occurred, they could rob those events of their power to surprise and derail them emotionally when they did happen. Seneca, a master of this practice, wrote extensively about its value. He advised, "We should project our thoughts ahead of us at every turn and have in mind every possible eventuality instead of only the usual course of events." Nothing happens to the wise man against his expectation. He's not suggesting we live in a state of paranoid anxiety, constantly fearing disaster. He's advocating for a proactive and realistic form of mental preparedness. It's the difference between a sailor who only learns to navigate calm seas and one who practices storm drills in advance. When the storm hits, the first sailor is terrified and helpless. The second is focused and capable because they have already walked through the necessary actions in their mind. This rehearsal dramatically reduces the emotional charge of a negative event. The initial wave of panic, the feeling of "this can't be happening," is replaced with a calmer, almost familiar response of "ah, this is one of the things I considered. I know how to handle this. Let's bring this out of the ancient world and into your current project." Imagine you're working on a crucial presentation for a client. The modern productivity approach is to create a flawless slide deck, practice your delivery, and visualize a successful meeting ending with a handshake and a new contract. The Stoic approach includes all of that, but then it goes a crucial step further. You sit down for 5 minutes and you actively contemplate what could go wrong. Your laptop could crash right before you present. The key decision maker might be called out of the room. The projector could fail. Your main argument might be met with a skeptical question you haven't prepared for. By simply envisioning these scenarios, you are not cursing yourself with bad luck. You are building mental and practical buffers. You might decide to bring a backup USB drive, have a printed copy of your slides, prepare a one-sentence summary in case you lose your time, and brainstorm answers to tough questions. When you walk into that room, you are no longer a fragile vessel of hope carrying a perfect plan. You are a resilient professional prepared for reality, and that confidence is palpable. This practice completely transforms our relationship with time and deadlines. A rigid project timeline that assumes no hiccups is a brittle thing. It will shatter at the first unexpected delay. A Stoic-informed timeline, however, has flexibility built into its very foundation. It acknowledges the inherent uncertainty of life. It builds in buffer time for the unknown, not as an afterthought, but as a central component of the plan. This isn't a lack of ambition. It's a profound respect for the complexity of the world. It recognizes that your effort is what you contribute, but the final outcome is a collaboration with countless external factors you cannot control. By preparing for obstacles, you are not planning for failure. You are planning for a successful navigation of the obstacles that are simply part of the journey. So I invite you to try this Stoic exercise of anticipation right now. Bring to mind a current plan or goal you're working toward. It could be a work project, a family event, a personal fitness target, or even a vacation. Now take just 60 seconds to mentally rehearse one credible obstacle that could arise. Don't just acknowledge it vaguely, play it out in your mind like a short film. See the problem occurring, notice any initial frustration that arises, and then watch yourself calmly implementing a solution. What is your first move? What's your backup plan? How do you adjust your expectations? This small act of mental preparation is like depositing resilience into your emotional bank account. When you face a challenge, you'll be able to make a withdrawal from that account instead of going into debt with stress and panic. You are not attracting trouble. You are building an inner fortitude that ensures trouble, when it comes, won't throw you off course. When did you last allow something to unfold slowly without rushing it toward a conclusion? In a world of instant downloads, same-day delivery, and constant notifications, we've become conditioned to expect immediate results. We feel a twinge of frustration if a web page takes more than 2 seconds to load. We get agitated waiting in a line for coffee, and we abandon projects if we don't see rapid progress. This hunger for speed isn't just a habit, it's a deeply ingrained expectation that leaves us perpetually dissatisfied with the natural, necessary pace of life. Stoicism offers a powerful corrective to this modern frenzy by recasting patience not as a passive waiting game, but as an active and essential strength, a virtue to be cultivated with the same dedication as courage or wisdom. The Stoics understood that impatience is fundamentally a refusal to accept reality as it is. It's a quiet rebellion against the way things are, a demand that the universe conform to our personal timetable. And this rebellion, they argued, is a primary source of our unhappiness. Epictetus, who taught that our peace depends on aligning our desires with nature's course, offered straightforward advice on this very point. He said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." While this might not seem directly about patience, it cuts to the heart of it. Impatience is a form of grief for what we do not have yet, the completed project, the arrived package, the achieved goal. Patience, in the Stoic sense, is the conscious decision to rejoice in the present stage of the process, however incomplete it may be. Consider the common experience of road rage. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and a surge of anger floods your system. Your heart rate spikes, your grip tightens on the wheel, and you might even feel compelled to yell or gesture. The modern, impatient response is to see this event as a personal insult, an obstruction to your progress that must be met with aggression. You are fighting against the reality of the situation, and in doing so, you are handing over your inner calm to a complete stranger whose actions you cannot control. The Stoic response, rooted in patience, would begin with a simple acknowledgement: this has happened. It is now part of the past, which is outside my control. My only domain is my reaction. From that place of acceptance, you can choose composure. You can take a deep breath, loosen your grip on the wheel, and reaffirm that your safety and your character are more important than reclaiming a few seconds of travel time. This isn't about being a pushover. It's about exercising supreme power over the only thing you truly command yourself. Patience, in this light, is an act of strength and self-possession. This virtue extends far beyond traffic jams into every facet of our lives, especially our pursuit of goals. We want to get fit in a month, master a new language in 6 weeks, and build a successful business in a year. When progress is slower than we'd like, we often interpret it as failure and are tempted to quit. The Stoic perspective encourages us to see this slow unfolding not as a barrier, but as the very essence of the journey. Deep learning cannot be rushed. It requires repetition, failure, and consolidation. Meaningful relationships are not built in days but through years of consistent, patient investment. Trust, expertise, and character are all crafts that are honed over time with deliberate practice. Rushing these processes doesn't make them happen faster. It often corrupts them, leading to shallow understanding, fragile connections, and eventual regret for not having been fully present for the experience. Patience allows for integration. It allows lessons to sink past the surface level of our understanding and become a part of who we are. A decision made in patience is almost always a better decision because it is made from a place of calm reflection rather than reactive panic. It considers consequences, weighs alternatives, and seeks counsel. The impatient decision seeks only resolution, any resolution, to end the discomfort of uncertainty. To truly integrate this Stoic virtue, we must move it from an abstract idea into a tangible practice. This isn't about trying to become a perfectly patient person overnight. That itself is an impatient goal. It is about choosing one small, specific interaction today to be your training ground. The next time you are in a slow-moving queue at the grocery store, instead of pulling out your phone to escape the wait, just stand there. Observe your impulse to be elsewhere, feel the slight agitation in your body, and then consciously decide to release it. Look around you, breathe. Use those minutes not as stolen time, but as reclaimed time, a brief window to practice the art of standing still without inner turmoil. Or when a colleague is explaining something and your mind is racing ahead, itching to interrupt and move the conversation along, make the conscious choice to listen. Practice patient listening, giving them the full weight of your attention without mentally formulating your response. In that small moment, you are not just being patient with another person, you are being patient with reality itself, allowing the conversation to unfold at its own natural pace. These tiny, daily exercises are like reps for your resilience muscle. Each one strengthens your capacity to endure delays without complaint, to find calm in the midst of slowdowns, and to truly appreciate the richness of a moment that asks nothing of you but to simply be there within it. Stoics cut away the non-essential to make time for what matters. While our modern approach to productivity is often about adding more apps, more hacks, more systems to manage our ever-growing lists, the Stoic path is one of radical subtraction. They understood that a life cluttered with trivial pursuits is a life drained of meaning, and that true effectiveness comes not from doing more things, but from doing the right things with our complete focus and intention. This philosophy is deeply intertwined with their core values. For a Stoic, every action was measured against a simple but profound question: does this contribute to living a virtuous life? Does it align with my fundamental duties as a human being, a parent, a friend, a citizen? This lens of virtue acts like a filter, instantly clarifying what deserves your precious time and what is merely noise. Marcus Aurelius provided a powerful criterion for this filtering process in his Meditations. He advised himself, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. But he also went further, connecting our actions to a larger purpose, writing, "You must spend your time on the few things that are truly vital and that benefit the common good." This is the heart of Stoic essentialism. It's not about self-deprivation or minimalism for its own sake. It's about consciously choosing to invest your limited time in the roles and responsibilities that truly define a life well lived, a life of service and character. Let's make this practical. Look at the modern to-do list. It's often a chaotic inventory of everything from brainstorm new project and call mom to respond to 27 emails and research best standing desk. It's a quantitative measure of busyness, not a qualitative guide for living. The sheer volume of items creates a low-grade anxiety, a feeling that you are always behind, and the act of checking them off provides only a fleeting hit of relief before the next list appears. Now contrast that with a Stoic-informed approach. Instead of asking, "What do I need to do today?" a Stoic would ask, "Who do I need to be today, and what are my essential duties?" Your identity isn't productivity machine. It's a set of core roles, perhaps a caregiver, a creator, a community member. Your list then flows from that. It becomes shorter but infinitely more meaningful. It might contain, have a patient and present conversation with my child after school, work with deep focus on the key project that serves my team, and perform one act of kindness for a neighbor. The 37 other minor tasks, they are evaluated ruthlessly. If they don't serve your essential roles or contribute to the common good, they are prime candidates for elimination, delegation, or simply being left undone without a shred of guilt. The clutter isn't just in your physical space, it's in your schedule, and it steals the mental clarity needed for true virtue. This practice of simplification is an active, daily discipline. It requires saying no to requests that pull you away from your core duties. It means turning down a new project when your current commitments already demand your full attention. It involves recognizing that many of the things we feel obligated to do are obligations we have created for ourselves, often driven by a desire to please others or a fear of missing out. The Stoic isn't swayed by these external pressures. Their compass is internal, pointed toward virtue and service. This might mean leaving a committee that doesn't align with your skills, unsubscribing from newsletters that add to your information overload, or scheduling blocks of unscheduled time to ensure you have the capacity to be fully present when your essential duties call. The goal is to create a schedule that reflects your values, not your vulnerabilities to distraction and approval. So I want to offer you a challenge that puts this Stoic principle into immediate action. This week, I want you to consciously eliminate one non-essential task from your life. Don't just postpone it, decide to not do it at all. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. Maybe it's that optional meeting you agreed to out of politeness, but that you know won't move the needle on anything important. Perhaps it's the habit of scrolling through a particular social media feed that leaves you feeling more drained than informed. It could be an errand that you can actually delegate or simply decide is unnecessary. The key is to make this a conscious act of Stoic choice. When you cross that item off your mental list forever, pay attention to the space it creates. That space is not emptiness, it is potential. It is room to breathe, to think, to be more present for the few things that truly matter. It is a small but powerful declaration that your time is not a bottomless resource to be filled, but a sacred trust to be invested with wisdom and purpose. Modern productivity tracks hours, Stoics reviewed character. At the end of each day, our contemporary instinct is to pull out our phones and scroll through a list of completed tasks, measuring our worth by how many boxes we've checked or how many hours we've logged. It's a quantitative audit that often leaves us feeling either temporarily satisfied or, more commonly, anxious about what we didn't accomplish. The Stoics, particularly Seneca, proposed a radically different kind of nightly ritual, one that had nothing to do with output and everything to do with input into your own soul. This was the practice of evening reflection, a deliberate and quiet conversation with oneself to assess not what you did, but how you did it and who you were while doing it. Seneca, in his moral letters to his friend Lucilius, detailed this practice with beautiful clarity. He wrote, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit that's now become mine, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." Just sit with that image for a moment. The day is done, the house is quiet, and instead of numbing out with entertainment or planning tomorrow's assault on his to-do list, Seneca turns his gaze inward. He isn't looking for accomplishments, he's looking for alignment. He's conducting a qualitative review of his own character. He asks himself probing questions. Where did I stray from reason today? Was I provoked into anger? Did I act with courage when it was required? Did I treat others with the justice and kindness they deserved? This is the ultimate application of the Stoic dichotomy of control. He's not judging his day by the external results, which were never his to command, but by the internal choices, which were entirely his responsibility. Now contrast this profound practice with the tools of modern productivity. We have apps that track our screen time, break down our days into colorful graphs of productivity and distraction, and buzz with reminders to stay on task. These tools measure the surface level of our lives, the time spent, the tasks completed. They are metrics of motion, not meaning. A Stoic evening review requires no technology more advanced than a simple notebook and a pen, or even just a few moments of quiet thought. The goal isn't to optimize your schedule for greater efficiency tomorrow. It's to soften your character for greater virtue. It's not about doing more, but about being better. Where a productivity app might tell you spent 2 hours on social media and flag it as wasted time, a Stoic reflection would ask a deeper question. What was the quality of my mind during those 2 hours? Was I envious? Was I seeking validation? Was I avoiding a difficult emotion? The focus shifts from the action itself to the intention and the virtue behind it. Imagine applying this to a real day. Let's say you had a difficult conversation with a colleague. A productivity review might note 30-minute meeting project delays, and move on. A Stoic review would gently interrogate the event. How did I show up in that meeting? Did I listen patiently, or was I waiting to defend my position? Did I speak with honesty and respect, or did I allow frustration to make my words sharp? Did I contribute to a solution, or did I merely assign blame? The event itself is neutral. The review is about your participation in it. This process isn't meant to be a form of self-flagellation or a search for faults. It's a gentle, honest accounting, much like a gardener walking through their garden at the end of the day, noting which plants need more water, which weeds need pulling, and simply appreciating the ones that are thriving. It's an act of care, not criticism. The true power of this practice is its cumulative effect. It's the gentle sand that smooths the rough edges of your character over time. By consistently asking these questions, you are not just reviewing your day, you are actively reprogramming your awareness for the days to come. You start your mornings with the lessons from the previous night's reflection fresh in your mind, making you more likely to catch yourself in the moment before you speak harshly or act out of fear. This daily ritual builds what the Stoics called prosach, mindful attention, turning every interaction into a potential opportunity for practicing virtue, because you know you will be reflecting on it later. I want to extend a simple invitation to you, one that requires no special tools or extensive time. For the next 3 days before you go to sleep, I encourage you to try this Stoic evening review. You don't need to write pages, just ask yourself 2 or 3 of Seneca's questions. What did I do well today? Where could I have been better? Did my actions align with my values? Did I treat the people in my path with the dignity they deserve? Don't judge the answers, just observe them with curiosity and compassion. This isn't about creating a new item for your productivity list. It's about closing the day not with a tally of tasks, but with a quiet commitment to becoming a slightly wiser, kinder, and more courageous person tomorrow. Productivity often serves the self. Stoic time serves humanity. This might be one of the most profound and countercultural shifts in thinking we've encountered so far. Our modern conception of productivity is almost exclusively self-referential. We set personal goals, track our individual output, and measure our success against our own past performance or the achievements of our peers. The entire language of hustle culture is built on the idea of personal optimization, getting more done for your career, your bank account, your personal brand. The Stoics, however, would see this hyper-focus on the self as a profound misunderstanding of our nature and, consequently, a tragic misallocation of our most precious resource, time. They introduced a concept known as oikaiosis, a term that doesn't have a perfect English translation but encompasses the ideas of social affinity, belonging, and the natural inclination we have to care for others. This principle suggests that our circle of concern should naturally expand from ourselves to our family, our community, and ultimately to all of humanity. Time, in this view, is not a private asset to be hoarded for personal gain, but a communal resource to be invested in the well-being of the whole. Marcus Aurelius, who carried the immense weight of leading an empire, constantly grounded himself in this interconnected view of existence. He wrote in his Meditations, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." With this simple, powerful analogy, he dismantles the very idea of a separate, self-interested life. A bee cannot thrive if the hive is sick or failing. Its individual well-being is inextricably linked to the health of the entire community. In the same way, our personal fulfillment is found not in isolating ourselves with our achievements, but in contributing to the vitality of the human hive. He reinforces this elsewhere, reminding himself, "We are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth." To act against one another, then, is contrary to nature. For the Stoics, to use our time solely for ourselves is to act against our own fundamental nature as social creatures designed for mutual support. Let's bring this ancient idea into the sharp focus of our daily lives. Consider the typical approach to goal setting. We might sit down with a notebook and write out objectives like get a promotion, save $20,000, or run a marathon. These are not bad goals, but they are inherently self-contained. They are about my advancement, my security, my fitness. A Stoic, influenced by oikaiosis, would approach this same exercise with a different set of questions. How can my work serve my team or my customers more effectively? How can I use my financial stability to provide security for my family or support a cause I believe in? How can my health and energy make me a more present and helpful friend? The goal itself might look similar on the surface: excelling at work, saving money, getting fit, but the underlying motivation is transformed from personal acquisition to contribution. The energy behind it shifts from anxiety about personal achievement to a sense of purpose rooted in service. This philosophy manifests in countless practical ways that redefine what a productive hour looks like. Imagine you have a free hour at the end of your workday. The productivity mindset might pressure you to use it for sharpening the saw, perhaps taking an online course to improve your skills for your own career advancement. There's nothing wrong with that, but the Stoic, while also valuing self-improvement, might see a higher use for that same hour. They might spend it mentoring a junior colleague without any expectation of recognition or reward. They might walk over to a teammate who looks overwhelmed and ask, "What can I take off your plate?" They might leave work on time to be fully present with their family, understanding that their role as a parent or partner is a fundamental duty to others. Outside of work, this could mean volunteering that hour at a local food bank, calling a friend who is going through a hard time, or simply performing an unnoticed act of kindness for a stranger. In the ledger of modern productivity, that hour might be logged as unbillable or non-output. In the ledger of a Stoic life, it is recorded as the most important work you did all day, the work of strengthening the bonds of our shared humanity. This isn't about adding more obligations to your already full plate. It's about infusing your existing commitments with a renewed sense of purpose. Your job is no longer just a job. It's a platform for serving your clients and supporting your coworkers. Your role as a parent is not a distraction from your real work. It is your primary and most sacred duty to the next generation. Your time commuting or running errands becomes an opportunity to practice patience and courtesy with everyone you encounter. When you begin to see your time as a gift to be shared rather than a treasure to be guarded, a sense of scarcity around time begins to ease. You stop seeing other people's needs as interruptions to your schedule and start seeing them as invitations to fulfill your human purpose. The pressure to achieve something grand and personal lifts, replaced by the quiet satisfaction of knowing that today, in 100 small ways, you made the hive a little stronger. So I want to leave you with a simple but potent question to carry into your week. How could you intentionally use just one single hour to benefit someone else? It doesn't have to be a formal commitment or a grand gesture. Maybe it's offering your expertise to someone who is just starting out. Perhaps it's listening, truly listening, to a family member without looking at your phone. It could be writing a note of genuine appreciation to a colleague or helping a neighbor with a task they struggle with. Don't overcomplicate it. Just choose 1 hour and dedicate it not to your own to-do list, but to the timeless Stoic principle that we are all connected, and that our time is best spent in service to that connection. Stoics expected to stumble, productivity expects perfection. This single sentence captures a fundamental conflict in how we approach our goals and our time. Modern productivity culture, with its roots in industrial efficiency and Silicon Valley optimization, often sells us a fantasy of seamless, frictionless progress. We're encouraged to find the perfect morning routine, the ideal workflow system, the ultimate life hack that will finally eliminate mistakes, delays, and the messy reality of being human. We internalize this pressure, treating every error as a personal failure, every learning curve as a frustrating detour on the road to instant mastery. The Stoics, however, built their entire philosophy on a more realistic and compassionate foundation. They understood that to be human is to be imperfect, and that the path to wisdom is paved not with flawless execution, but with repeated effort, gradual improvement, and the humility to begin as a novice. Epictetus, who began his life as a slave and understood struggle intimately, offered profound encouragement on this point. He advised his students, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. This isn't a call to embrace ignorance, but rather a permission slip to be a beginner. He's telling us to release the crushing weight of the expectation that we must be experts from day one. He goes even further, painting a vivid picture of the learning process. No great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me that you desire a fig, I answer you that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. This beautiful analogy reframes our entire relationship with time and growth. We don't look at a fig tree in early spring and curse it for not providing fruit. We understand that it is following its natural, necessary cycle. The Stoics ask us to extend that same grace to ourselves. The time spent learning, fumbling, and practicing is not wasted time. It is the essential blossoming and being Chinese letter that must precede any meaningful ripening. Now, bring this into a modern context. Think about the frustration of trying to learn a new language. The productivity mindset might set a goal of conversational fluency in 3 months. downloading the top-rated app and grinding through daily lessons. When you still struggle to form a basic sentence after 6 weeks, it's easy to feel like a failure, to decide you're just not a language person, and to quit in frustration. You see the time invested as lost because it didn't yield the desired, immediate result. The Stoic approach is completely different. It embraces those first clumsy, foolish-sounding attempts as a necessary and honorable part of the process. Each mispronounced word is not a mark against you. It is a blossom on the tree, a sign that the process is underway. The time spent is not wasted. It is invested in the slow, organic work of building new neural pathways. The goal shifts from achieving fluency by a certain date to the quality of your engagement with each daily practice, trusting that the fruit will come in its own time. This philosophy applies to every skill we try to acquire, from playing an instrument and mastering a sport to becoming a better leader or a more patient parent. We are immersed in a culture that celebrates overnight success stories and viral sensations, creating the illusion that mastery should be instantaneous. This creates a constant, low-grade anxiety that we are falling behind, that we are not learning fast enough. We abandon promising paths because our progress doesn't match an artificial timeline. The Stoic alternative is to make peace with the plateau, to find dignity in the daily repetition, and to measure progress not by external benchmarks, but by the subtle internal shifts, the slightly lighter touch on the guitar strings, the moment of patience you manage to grasp in a heated discussion, the single new word you remembered today that you forgot yesterday. This mindset transforms the learning process from a stressful race into a meaningful practice in itself, a daily exercise in courage and perseverance that is valuable regardless of the outcome. So I want to invite you to turn this lens inward for a moment. Where in your own life are you currently feeling the sting of impatience with your own progress? Is it a professional skill you feel you should have mastered by now? A personal habit like mindfulness or exercise that you keep starting and stopping because it never seems to stick? Or perhaps it's a broader character trait. You wish you were more courageous, more disciplined, or more compassionate, and you get frustrated with yourself when you fall back into old patterns. Identify that one area. Now, instead of judging your pace, try seeing it through the eyes of Epictetus. You are a fig tree in bloom. The blossoms are beautiful. The fruit will come. Can you find a way to appreciate the blossom stage for what it is, the essential, undeniable proof that you are growing? Can you grant yourself the permission to be thought foolish and stupid for a while, trusting that this is the only honest path to ever becoming wise? We say, I'll be happy when I get the promotion. I'll be happy when I finally lose 20 pounds. I'll be happy when I can afford that new car. This is the language of modern achievement, a dialect of deferred living that pushes contentment into a future that never quite seems to arrive. The Stoics, and Seneca in particular, saw this perpetual postponement not as ambitious drive, but as one of the greatest follies of the human experience. They offered a radical counterpoint: be happy now by acting well. Not when conditions are perfect, not when you've checked off every box on your list, but right here, in the quality of your current effort and the integrity of your present action. Seneca issued a powerful warning against this habit of delaying life in his moral letters. He observed, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." The whole future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately. With this, he cuts to the heart of the issue. Expectancy is the trap. We are so busy arranging the pieces on the board for a future win that we fail to realize the game is already in play, and that each move itself is the point. He is telling us that the when we are waiting for is a mirage. True happiness, or more accurately for the Stoics, true fulfillment and tranquility, is not a destination at the end of a long road of accomplishments. It is found in the very act of walking the road with virtue. It is the satisfaction of doing a job with care, the warmth of connecting with someone honestly, the quiet dignity of facing a challenge with courage regardless of the outcome. Let's make this distinction incredibly clear. Achievement-based happiness is conditional and fragile. It says, my sense of worth and joy is contingent upon this specific external result. If you tie your happiness to a promotion, what happens if you don't get it? Your joy evaporates. Even if you do get it, the thrill is often fleeting, and within days or weeks, your mind has already latched onto the next milestone, the next win, leaving you perpetually chasing a horizon that recedes as you approach it. The Stoic alternative, finding satisfaction in current efforts, is unconditional and resilient. It says, my worth and my contentment are derived from the quality of my character and my actions right now. This means you can find deep satisfaction in a project even if it ultimately fails, because you know you gave it your best and acted with integrity. You can find joy in a rigorous workout not because you've reached your goal weight, but because you are demonstrating discipline and respect for your body in this very moment. The source of the good feeling is internal and immediate, not external and delayed. This philosophy transforms mundane tasks from chores into opportunities for virtuous practice. Washing dishes becomes a chance to practice mindfulness and care for your home. A difficult commute becomes a training ground for patience and equanimity. A boring meeting becomes an exercise in respect and attention for your colleagues. When you shift your focus from the future outcome to the present moment virtue, you discover that happiness wasn't waiting for you at the finish line. It was available all along the path, disguised as your own good effort. You begin to collect small moments of fulfillment throughout your day, building a life that feels rich not because of what you have accumulated, but because of how you have chosen to engage with each hour. So I want to pose a two-part question to you, one that deserves a few moments of quiet reflection. First, what is that one thing you are most prominently postponing your joy for? Be honest with yourself. Is it a financial goal, a relationship milestone, a career achievement? Just name it. And then second, and this is the crucial Stoic shift, how could you find a piece of that very same joy today, not by achieving the milestone, but by embodying the virtue that the milestone represents? If your postponed joy is for financial security, can you find joy today in the act of being prudent and responsible with the resources you already have? If it's for a loving relationship, can you find joy today in practicing kindness and patience with the people already in your life? If it's for career success, can you find joy right now in the focused, excellent work you are doing on a single task? The future you're waiting for is built entirely of present moments like this one. The Stoics invite you to stop waiting for the building to be complete to enjoy it, and to start finding the profound satisfaction in laying each brick with care. Is your relentless productivity actually a sophisticated form of avoidance? What if the endless hustle isn't just about getting ahead, but about running from something far more unsettling? The quiet, uncharted territory of your own inner world. The Stoics, masters of introspection, would argue that our addiction to busyness often serves as a convenient shield, protecting us from the discomfort of sitting with our own thoughts, our fears, and the larger, more existential questions about our purpose and mortality. The French philosopher Blaise Pascal, though not a Stoic himself, later captured this idea with stunning precision when he wrote, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." This observation echoes a core Stoic truth. We fill the silence with noise and our schedules with tasks because we are afraid of what we might find in the emptiness. Facing ourselves without distraction requires a courage that simply doing more does not. In our modern world, we have perfected this art of evasion. We move from the buzz of the morning alarm to the glow of the phone screen, to the packed calendar, to the streaming service, to the social media feed, creating a seamless loop of external stimulation that leaves no crack for stillness to enter. We wear our exhaustion as a badge of honor, but it can often be a mask for a deeper exhaustion of the soul. The Stoic practice of purposeful introspection, however, demands that we turn toward what we're avoiding. It asks us to courageously examine our desires, our judgments, and our reactions. Are you working late again because the project is truly that urgent, or because going home means sitting with the tension in your relationship? Are you filling your weekend with social events and errands because you enjoy them, or because an empty Saturday brings up feelings of loneliness or a lack of purpose? This constant motion allows us to outrun these questions, but it never allows us to answer them. We are treating the symptoms of a restless mind with more restlessness, a strategy that only deepens the underlying anxiety. Imagine two different approaches to a spare 30 minutes in your day. The modern, avoidant response is to immediately reach for the phone, to check emails, to scroll through news feeds, or to find a quick task to tick off anything to fill that void and silence the inner hum. The Stoic response is almost the exact opposite. It would be to consciously schedule that time for absolutely nothing, to sit on the couch and just stare out the window. To take a walk without a podcast in your ears, to simply be with your own mind without an agenda or a distraction. Initially, this will feel profoundly uncomfortable. You might feel a rising sense of anxiety, an itch to do something. This is the feeling of withdrawal from the addiction to busyness, but if you stay with it, something shifts. The frantic mental chatter begins to settle. You might notice the way the light falls across the floor, or become aware of a tension in your shoulders you've been ignoring for days. You might finally feel the sadness you've been suppressing or access a creative idea that was buried under the noise. This is not wasted time. It is some of the most productive time you can spend, because it is time spent getting reacquainted with yourself. To truly understand this, I want to offer you a direct and simple challenge, one that requires no special tools or training. Sometime in the next 24 hours, I encourage you to carve out just 10 minutes. Find a quiet space where you won't be interrupted. Set a timer if you need to, and then just sit. Don't pick up your phone, don't turn on music, don't even try to meditate in a formal way. Just be still. Your mind will rebel. It will tell you this is a waste of time, that you have more important things to do. It will bring up every worry and every item on your to-do list. Observe those thoughts without judgment, and then let them pass by like clouds. The goal isn't to empty your mind, but to witness it without immediately reacting. This simple act of sitting in silence is a radical declaration that you are no longer willing to use productivity as an escape hatch from your own life. It is the first, brave step toward turning and facing whatever it is you've been running from, and discovering that within that stillness lies not misery, but a profound and enduring source of clarity and peace. Routines support character, schedules often constrain it. This distinction is at the heart of the Stoic approach to structuring our days. We often confuse the two, believing that a meticulously planned calendar, packed from dawn until dusk with back-to-back commitments, is the pinnacle of a productive life. But the Stoics saw this kind of rigid scheduling as a cage for the mind, a system that leaves no room for the most important things: reflection, adaptation, and the practice of virtue in the unpredictable moments of life. A schedule is external and brittle. It dictates what you must do and when you must do it, often creating immense stress when the inevitable interruption occurs. A routine, however, is internal and flexible. It's a framework of consistent practices that guide how you choose to engage with whatever the day throws at you. It's the difference between a strict, minute-by-minute itinerary for a trip and having a reliable compass. One shatters with a single wrong turn, while the other always helps you find your way back to your intended direction. Marcus Aurelius, despite the unimaginable demands of leading the Roman Empire, understood the power of starting each day with a routine designed to fortify his character, not just organize his tasks. He began his mornings with a practice of preparation, not planning. He would remind himself of what to expect from the day ahead, writing, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." This wasn't a pessimistic rant, it was a profound ritual of inoculation. By anticipating the challenges of human nature, he was not surprised or derailed by them when they appeared. His routine was to arm his mind with reason and compassion before engaging with the world, ensuring that his actions would be guided by virtue, not by reactive emotion. This preparatory ritual created a stable inner foundation, a psychological anchor that held fast regardless of how chaotic his external schedule became. Consider the stark contrast in lived experience. An overscheduled day might look like this: a 7 a.m. workout, back-to-back meetings from 9 to 5, a rushed lunch at your desk, and an evening crammed with personal errands and social obligations. Every minute is accounted for. The entire day is a high-wire act, and the slightest delay, a meeting that runs long, a traffic jam, a sick child, sends a cascade of stress through the entire system, leaving you feeling like a failure for not executing the plan perfectly. Now imagine a Stoic-informed routine. It might simply be, upon waking, spend 10 minutes in quiet reflection, reading a passage of philosophy, or journaling your intentions for the day. Dedicate your work hours to deep focus on your most important task, but build in buffers between appointments to allow for reflection and adaptation. End the day with a short review of your actions. This structure isn't about what you do hour by hour, but how you approach whatever you are doing. It provides the stability of rhythm without the fragility of a packed calendar. The first approach measures the day by its adherence to a plan. The second measures it by the quality of character you brought to each moment. This flexible rhythm allows for the most crucial element of a Stoic life, the space to respond virtuously rather than react hastily. When your day is a wall of commitments, a colleague's urgent request feels like an intrusion, triggering irritation. But when your day has a rhythm that includes white space and flexibility, that same request becomes an opportunity to practice kindness and cooperation, a chance to help a fellow human being. Your routine has prepared you to see it not as a disruption to your schedule, but as a part of your duty. The routine supports your values, the schedule often conflicts with them. It's the difference between being a slave to the clock and being the master of your time. So I want to offer you a simple but powerful reflective prompt. Take a clear-eyed look at the structure of your typical day. Does it feel like a supportive rhythm that empowers you to be your best self, or does it feel like a constrictive schedule that herds you from one task to the next, leaving you drained and disconnected from what truly matters? Does your daily structure have the flexibility to accommodate reflection, kindness, and unexpected opportunities for virtue, or does it leave no room for life itself to happen? What if you could fundamentally shift your perspective and see time not as a scarce resource you're constantly running out of, but as an abundant gift that is continually being given to you? This is the powerful Stoic pivot from anxiety to gratitude, a mental move that can dissolve the frantic urgency that so often colors our days. Modern productivity culture is built on a foundation of scarcity. There's never enough time, so we must constantly optimize, hustle, and squeeze every last drop of value from each minute. This mindset, while meant to empower us, almost always backfires, breeding a low hum of worry that we're falling behind, that we're not doing enough, that we're wasting the one thing we can never get back. The Stoics, particularly Seneca, offered a radically different starting point. Instead of focusing on the time that has slipped away, they practiced a profound gratitude for the time that is here, right now. Seneca expressed this beautifully when he wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day." The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time. He's not talking about a morbid obsession with the end. He's describing a grateful appreciation for the present. When you genuinely feel that each new day is a bonus, a generous extension you weren't guaranteed, your relationship with time transforms from one of lack to one of abundance. This practice of gratitude acts as a direct antidote to the feeling of scarcity. Think about the difference between clock watching and moment appreciating. The clock watcher is trapped in a cycle of measurement and deficit. They glance at their watch during a pleasant conversation, mentally calculating how many minutes they have left before they need to rush off to the next thing. They eat a delicious meal while simultaneously thinking about the meeting that follows it. They are physically present but mentally time traveling into a future that hasn't happened yet, and in doing so, they completely miss the richness of the experience they are actually having. The Stoic alternative is to consciously pause and appreciate the moment itself. It's the deliberate act of stopping to truly taste your food, to listen fully to the sound of a loved one's laughter, to feel the warmth of the sun on your skin during a brief walk, and to internally acknowledge, "This is good. I am grateful for this. This doesn't require more time. It requires a different quality of attention within the time you already have." Gratitude doesn't add more minutes to your day, but it dramatically expands the experience of each minute you are given. This shift is less about a change in your schedule and more about a change in your perception. The anxious mind sees a quiet Sunday afternoon as a blank canvas to be filled with productivity, or worse, as a terrifying void to be escaped through distraction. The grateful mind sees that same afternoon as a spacious gift, an opportunity to read, to nap, to call a friend, or to simply do nothing at all without guilt. One perspective is rooted in fear of not having enough. The other is rooted in thankfulness for what is already here. This grateful stance is what allows for true enjoyment. You can't actually enjoy a vacation if you're constantly worried about it ending or stressing over how much it cost per day. You can only enjoy it by fully immersing yourself in the experience, by being thankful for the sights, the sounds, and the break from routine. The Stoics would argue that this same principle applies to every single day, not just our vacations. A day lived in gratitude is a day lived fully, regardless of how many items were crossed off a to-do list. To make this tangible, I want to offer you a simple reflective practice, one that takes less than 60 seconds but can rewire your entire perspective on your day. Before you go to sleep tonight, or even right now as you're listening, I want you to bring to mind 3 specific moments from today that you feel genuinely grateful for. They don't have to be grand or profound. In fact, it's often the smallest, most ordinary moments that carry the most weight when we pause to appreciate them. Was it the first sip of hot coffee in the morning, the feeling of your head hitting the pillow, a brief exchange of kindness with a stranger, a task you completed without rushing? Just identify 3. The simple act of scanning your day for things to be grateful for forces your mind out of its default mode of scanning for threats, problems, and lacks. It trains your brain to look for gifts, however small, and in doing so, you are not just remembering your day, you are actively composing it, highlighting the moments of connection, peace, and simple joy that modern productivity's obsession with scarcity would have otherwise encouraged you to overlook. Hustle culture tells you to do more. Stoicism asks you to be better. This simple distinction cuts to the very core of a modern sickness. A pervasive anxiety that whispers our value is a direct function of our output, our followers, our revenue, our visible accomplishments. We're bombarded with messages that glorify the grind, that celebrate all-nighters and packed schedules as badges of honor, subtly convincing us that if we aren't constantly producing, we are somehow falling behind, becoming less relevant, less worthy. The Stoics, living in a world without social media but fully aware of social pressure, saw this toxic equation for what it is: a fundamental confusion between motion and meaning, between being busy and being useful. They offered a radical, countercultural measure of a life well lived, not what you have achieved, but who you have become in the process. Your worth is not found in your resume or your bank statement. It is cultivated in the quiet moments of choice, in the integrity of your actions when no one is watching, in the courage of your character when faced with difficulty. Epictetus, the former slave who became one of history's most influential teachers, put it with his characteristic bluntness. He said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." While this might seem unrelated at first, it strikes directly at the heart of hustle culture's arrogance. The person who is always busy, always producing, often believes they have life figured out, that more action is always the answer. But Epictetus suggests that true growth begins with humility, with the admission that we might not know what is truly best. He goes even further to clarify the difference between mere activity and actual value, advising, never confuse being busy with being productive. A horse after a long run is covered in sweat, so is a horse that has been rolling in the dirt. One has been useful, the other has only been busy. This vivid analogy is a perfect antidote to our modern confusion. Sweat and effort are not inherently virtuous, they are neutral. What matters is the direction of that effort. Are you running toward a meaningful goal, or are you just rolling in the dirt, creating the appearance of effort without any real forward movement? Consider the stark contrast played out in our daily lives, especially online. Social media hustle culture is a performance. It's the carefully curated photo of a laptop on a beach at 5 a.m. The humble brag about a 100-hour work week, the constant messaging that if you're not sacrificing your health and relationships for your goals, you're not trying hard enough. This performance is designed to generate external validation, likes, shares, comments that scream, "You're so dedicated." But this validation is a hollow substitute for genuine self-respect. It keeps you on a treadmill, constantly performing for an audience, mistaking their applause for authentic accomplishment. Now, picture the Stoic alternative: quiet, consistent virtue. This isn't photogenic. It's the person who turns off their phone to be fully present with their child, not posting about it, simply doing it because it is the right thing to do. It's the professional who does their work with meticulous care, not for a bonus or recognition, but because doing a job well is its own reward. It's the individual who chooses patience in a frustrating situation, not because anyone is watching, but because they wish to be a patient person. This is the sweat of the horse that is running the right race, not just rolling in the dirt for show. One approach is a never-ending search for external proof of worth. The other is an internal commitment to living by a code of ethics, regardless of who sees it or what it produces. This isn't a call to abandon ambition or to stop working hard on things that matter. The Stoics were incredibly active people. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire, Seneca advised an emperor, and was a prolific writer. Epictetus taught daily. They believed in purposeful action. The critical difference is the why behind the action. Hustle culture's why is often fear. Fear of being ordinary, fear of missing out, fear of not being enough. Stoic actions why is virtue the desire to act with justice, courage, discipline, and wisdom, because that is the path to a flourishing life, or eudaimonia. When your primary motive is virtue, your metrics for success transform completely. A failed business venture is not a personal failure if you conducted yourself with honesty and integrity throughout. A project that didn't get the recognition you hoped for is still a success if it was done with excellence and contributed to the common good. You are freed from the roller coaster of external validation and can find a steady, unwavering satisfaction in the quality of your own character. So I want to leave you with a question that can serve as a powerful compass, cutting through the noise of hustle culture's demands. How do you personally define success? And be honest, not with the answer you think you should give, but with the one that currently guides your choices. Does your definition revolve around metrics like income, titles, possessions, or social media influence? Or does it center on the kind of person you are becoming? Take a moment to try on a Stoic definition. Imagine defining your success by questions like these. Did I act with courage today when it was easier to be silent? Was I fair and just in my dealings with others? Did I exercise discipline over my impulses? Did I learn something that made me wiser? This shift in definition is not about lowering your standards. It's about raising them to something far more meaningful and entirely within your control. It moves the finish line from a distant, moving target in the external world to the immediate, accessible ground of your own choices, allowing you to experience a sense of accomplishment and worth that no market crash, missed promotion, or negative comment can ever take away from you. Imagine facing a high-pressure deadline with a sense of complete, unshakable calm, not a forced smile or suppressed panic, but a deep, steady composure that allows you to think clearly and act decisively even as the clock ticks down. This isn't a fantasy of emotional numbness. It's the practical reality of Stoic equanimity, a state of inner stability that the ancients called apatheia. Now, that word often gets misunderstood. It doesn't mean apathy or a lack of feeling. Instead, it translates to a freedom from the disturbing, chaotic passions that hijack our reason, the kind of frantic anxiety and reactive haste that time pressure so effortlessly triggers. The Stoics saw this calm not as a personality trait you either have or you don't, but as a skill to be trained, a mental muscle to be strengthened through daily practice. It's the ability to meet the inevitable urgencies of life without being internally overthrown by them. Epictetus, who focused intensely on the distinction between what is and isn't ours to control, gave us the foundational instruction for this practice. He said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Then he took it a step further, advising, "Don't be disturbed by external events. They are not up to you, your response is." He's giving us a precise tool for time stress here. The deadline itself, the volume of work, the unexpected interruption, these are external events. They are facts. Our agitation, our panic, our frantic rushing, these are our internal reactions. They are choices, even if they don't feel like it in the moment. Equanimity is the practice of inserting a tiny, powerful pause between the external event and our chosen response, a moment where we reclaim our sovereignty from the tyranny of the clock. Let's paint a picture of this contrast in action. Imagine two people facing the same crisis at work. A server goes down 30 minutes before a major product launch, threatening to derail months of effort. The first person, operating on modern productivity's default settings, slips immediately into panic. Their heart races, their breathing becomes shallow. They might snap at a colleague or frantically refresh a screen, hoping the problem will magically fix itself. Their thinking becomes clouded by the stress hormone cortisol, making it harder to see logical solutions. They are in a state of reaction, tossed about by the waves of the event. Now observe the second person who has practiced Stoic principles. They receive the same news. They feel the same initial jolt of adrenaline. The Stoics never claimed to be immune to first impressions. But then they deploy their training. They take one conscious breath, acknowledging the reality. The server is down. This is the current situation. They quickly apply the dichotomy of control. I cannot control the server's hardware, but I can control my next move. I can alert the right team, communicate clearly with stakeholders, and focus on the step directly in front of me. Their energy flows not into the panic about the potential failure, but into a methodical, composed series of actions. The deadline hasn't changed, but their experience of it is entirely different. They are responding from a place of calm agency rather than reacting from a place of frantic fear. This equanimity transforms your relationship with time itself. When you are not constantly agitated by time pressure, time actually feels different. It feels more spacious. A minute spent in panicked inaction feels infinitely longer and more draining than a minute spent in calm, purposeful action. The Stoics understood that our emotional state doesn't just affect our experience of time, it fundamentally alters how effectively we can use it. A calm mind is an efficient mind. It solves problems faster, communicates more clearly, and makes fewer mistakes under pressure, ultimately saving more time than haste ever could. The practice of apatheia is, therefore, not a philosophical luxury. It is the ultimate productivity hack, but one that works on the level of your character rather than your calendar. To begin building this capacity in your own life, I want to offer you a very simple but powerful reflective practice. For the next few days, I encourage you to become a quiet observer of your own internal weather patterns. Every time you feel the familiar squeeze of time pressure, that jolt when you realize you're late, that clench in your stomach when a reminder pops up for a task you've neglected, that rush of heat when a project takes longer than expected, I want you to simply pause. Don't try to stop the feeling immediately, just notice it, label it quietly to yourself. There is agitation, there is haste. This simple act of naming the emotion creates a tiny sliver of space between you and the reaction. In that space, you have a choice. You can choose to take one deep breath before you respond. You can choose to ask the Stoic question, what part of this is truly within my control right at this very second? This isn't about eliminating stress. It's about changing your relationship to it, learning to see the time pressure as a wave you can learn to surf rather than a force that must inevitably pull you under. Each second is a chance to choose kindness, courage, or justice. This is the profound ethical lens through which the Stoics viewed the passage of time. For them, the true measure of a life was not found in a tally of completed tasks or accumulated achievements, but in the quiet, cumulative record of countless moral choices made in the fleeting moments of each day. Modern productivity asks, did you get it done? Stoicism asks a far more demanding question. How did you do it? With what character? With what intention? This shifts the entire focus from external output to internal integrity, transforming every interaction, no matter how small, into a potential arena for practicing virtue. Time, in this view, becomes the canvas upon which we paint our character with every action, word, and even thought. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this immediate connection between the moment and morality. In his private meditations, he wrote, "You could be good today, but instead you choose tomorrow." This is a stunningly simple yet powerful indictment of procrastination, not of tasks but of character. We often delay our best intentions, telling ourselves we'll be more patient tomorrow, more generous next week, more courageous when the circumstances are right. The Stoic philosopher Emperor cuts through this self-deception with brutal clarity. The right circumstance is now. The perfect time to be good is today. Not when you're less busy, less stressed, or less tired, but in the very next choice you face. He reinforces this elsewhere, advising himself to stop debating what a good person is and just be one. This is the core of the Stoic shift, away from abstract theorizing about virtue and into the gritty, practical application of it in the unfolding present. Consider how this plays out in the modern workplace, an environment often dominated by the idol of efficiency. Imagine you need a quick answer from a colleague about a project. The efficient path might be to send a terse, all-caps email or a blunt message that gets straight to the point without pleasantries. It's fast, it's clear, and it gets the job done. The task is completed, but the Stoic would pause and consider the virtuous path. How can this interaction also be an exercise in respect and kindness? It might take an extra 30 seconds to frame the request politely, to ask how their day is going, or to express gratitude for their help. The outcome, getting the information, might be identical, but the moral quality of the action is utterly different. One approach treats the other person as a mere functionary, a tool to achieve your goal. The other acknowledges their humanity and dignity. One checks a box on a to-do list, the other deposits integrity into the bank of your character. Over a lifetime, these tiny choices compound, not into a larger portfolio, but into a stronger or weaker soul. This principle extends far beyond communication into every corner of our lives. That moment of frustration in a long line is not just wasted time. It is a choice between patience and irritation. The decision to scroll mindlessly through social media or to read a few pages of a challenging book is a choice between intellectual passivity and active cultivation of the mind. Even how you speak to yourself when you make a mistake, with harsh criticism or with compassionate understanding, is a moral choice about how you value your own humanity. The Stoics would argue that there are no truly neutral moments. Every second presents a fork in the road, however subtle. One path leads toward virtue, the other away from it. We are constantly, incrementally, making ourselves into the people we are becoming through these micro-decisions, and time is the medium in which this self-creation occurs. I want to invite you to make this concept personal and immediate. Cast your mind back over the last 24 hours and find one specific, small moment where you faced such a choice. It doesn't have to be a grand ethical dilemma. Perhaps it was when a family member interrupted you while you were focused on something else. Did you choose the efficient response, a sigh of irritation, a curt answer, or did you choose the virtuous one, setting aside your task to give them your full attention? Maybe it was when you saw a piece of litter on the ground. Did you walk past it efficiently, or did you take a moment to pick it up, choosing a small act of care for your shared environment? Or perhaps it was an internal choice when you received some criticism. Did you efficiently dismiss it to protect your ego, or did you patiently and courageously look for the grain of truth within it? Identify that moment and simply acknowledge the choice you made, not with judgment, but with the clear-eyed awareness that you are the author of your character, 1 second at a time. You can't change yesterday, but you can use now well. This is the profound and liberating relief that Stoicism offers when it comes to our biggest time-related anxiety, regret. Modern productivity culture often amplifies this feeling. We look back at hours spent scrolling, years in a job we didn't love, or opportunities we let slip by, and we compound the initial loss by pouring vast amounts of present mental energy into grieving for it. We treat regret like a debt we must endlessly repay, as if by punishing ourselves enough, we can somehow undo what's already done. The Stoics, with their unwavering focus on what is within our control, saw this for the tragic double loss that it is. Not only did you lose that original time, but you are now voluntarily losing more time, the precious, irreplaceable present, to the futile act of lamenting the past. Regret, in this light, becomes the ultimate waste of time, a second theft we perform on ourselves. Seneca, who wrote so eloquently about the shortness of life, addressed this self-punishment directly. He advised, stop allowing your happiness to depend on the past. It is gone, and you cannot call it back. He isn't encouraging amnesia or a lack of accountability. He is pointing to a simple, unchangeable fact of existence. The past is in the category of things not up to us. It is fixed. It is immutable. We can no more change a single second of yesterday than we can change the orbit of the moon. To rail against it, to dwell in it, to endlessly replay it in our minds is therefore the height of irrationality. It is to be a sailor who, instead of adjusting the sails to the wind that is actually blowing, spends the entire voyage staring longingly and angrily at the port they left behind, ensuring they never reach any new destination. Seneca's wisdom invites us to stop staring at the receding shoreline and to start navigating the ocean we are actually in. Let's make this distinction incredibly vivid. Imagine two different responses to the same realization. I wasted the last 2 hours watching trivial videos online. The first, regret-filled response is to spiral. You spend the next 30 minutes berating yourself. I'm so lazy. I'm never going to reach my goals. Why do I always do this? That was 2 hours I could have spent working out or reading. This mental self-flagellation doesn't recover the 2 hours. It simply attaches another 30 minutes of misery to them, turning a 2-hour diversion into a 2.5-hour ordeal of negativity. Now picture the Stoic response. You notice the thought. I spent 2 hours on something that didn't align with my values. You acknowledge it without drama. You place it firmly in the past, in the category of things that cannot be changed. And then, with that same breath, you ask the only productive question. What can I do with the next 30 minutes that would be a good use of my time? The past is acknowledged, but it is not allowed to colonize the present. One approach multiplies the loss, the other contains it and moves forward. This practice of releasing regret is not about giving yourself a free pass to be irresponsible. It is about exercising a fierce and compassionate form of efficiency with your mental and emotional resources. The energy you spend on regret is energy you are actively diverting from building a better present. It's like trying to drive a car forward while keeping your foot slammed on the brake. The friction, the heat, the wear and tear, all of it is self-inflicted. The Stoic alternative is to release the brake, to understand that the best and only way to honor time that was misspent is to refuse to misspend any more of it on guilt. The most virtuous thing you can do about a wasted yesterday is to ensure that today is not. So I want to offer you a small but potent ritual of release, one that makes this Stoic principle tangible. I want you to bring to mind one specific instance of wasted time from your past that still carries a small charge of regret for you. It doesn't have to be a huge life mistake. It can be something simple. Maybe it's an afternoon you spent procrastinating last week, or a year in your 20s when you feel you weren't focused enough. Now, I want you to consciously forgive yourself for it. Say it out loud if you can. I forgive myself for wasting that time. This isn't an excuse, it's an act of acceptance. You are simply acknowledging the reality of what happened and choosing to stop fighting against it. You are declaring that the debt is paid not by suffering but by understanding. And with that forgiveness, you are freeing up a reservoir of mental energy that was tied to that old event. Energy you can now invest in the only moment you ever truly have, this one. Stoics waited for the ripe moment, unlike productivity's constant urgency. We've been exploring how the Stoics moved beyond the tick-tock of the clock, and this brings us to one of their most sophisticated understandings of time, the concept of kairos. In ancient Greek thought, there were two primary words for time. Chronos is the time we're all familiar with, the quantitative, sequential time of calendars, clocks, and deadlines. It's the time we measure and try to manage, but kairos is something entirely different. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. It refers to the opportune moment, the right time, the critical window when conditions are perfectly aligned for action. It's the seam in the fabric of chronos that, if you can find it, allows you to pull a thread and change the entire pattern. While the term kairos predates Stoicism and has roots in rhetoric and archery, referring to the perfect moment to speak or to loose an arrow, it was deeply compatible with the Stoic way of thinking. The Stoics, with their emphasis on wisdom and discernment, understood that virtuous action wasn't just about what you do, but when you do it. Acting with justice is a virtue, but acting with justice at the precisely right moment is an art. This stands in stark opposition to the modern cult of urgency, which treats every moment as equally urgent. Our productivity systems often scream that everything needs to be done now, creating a state of perpetual emergency that actually dulls our ability to recognize the moments that truly matter. We respond to every email immediately, jump on every trend, and make snap decisions just to clear the deck, mistaking this frantic reactivity for effectiveness. The Stoic approach, guided by the search for kairos, is one of patient vigilance. It's not passive waiting, it's active watching. It's the difference between a novice gardener who sows seeds in every season, wasting most of them, and a master gardener who understands soil, sun, and season, and knows the exact perfect day to plant for the greatest yield. Both are investing effort, but one is investing it wisely, in harmony with a deeper timing. Consider a practical example from your own life. Imagine you need to ask your manager for a raise or a change in your responsibilities. The productivity mindset might tell you to schedule the meeting as soon as possible to get it off your list. You march into their office, make your case, and are met with resistance because they're in the middle of a budget crisis or a stressful product launch. Your timing, driven by your own schedule, was completely off. You acted in your chronos, and it failed. Now picture the Stoic approach. You have the same goal, but you wait for kairos. You pay attention, you listen for cues, you notice when a big project you contributed to succeeds, when your manager is in a good mood on a quiet Friday afternoon, when the company announces positive earnings. You choose that moment to make your request. The words you use might be identical, but the context, the timing makes all the difference. One approach is like trying to force a door open. The other is like finding the moment when it is unlocked and simply turning the handle. This principle of kairos applies to far more than just workplace conversations. It's present in the patience to not send that angry email, to wait until your own emotions have settled and you can address the issue with reason rather than passion. It's in the wisdom to hold your tongue during a heated family discussion, choosing the calm of the next morning to have a productive talk rather than adding fuel to the fire late at night. It's in the investor who avoids following the herd and the hype, waiting for the right moment to make a move based on research and principle rather than fear or greed. In each case, the action is not abandoned. It is simply deferred until the conditions are ripe for it to be most effective and most virtuous. This is the essence of strategic patience. It's not inaction, it is the most potent form of action because it respects the complex flow of events beyond our control and seeks to harmonize with it. So I want to bring this concept down to earth for you right now. Bring to mind a current situation in your life that feels unresolved. It might be a difficult conversation you need to have, a decision about a relationship, a career move you're contemplating, or even a creative project that feels stuck. Now, instead of asking yourself, when is the next available slot in my calendar to deal with this? I want you to ask a different question. What would waiting for the right moment look like in this situation? What signs would tell you that the conditions are aligning? What would need to be true for your action to land with the greatest possible impact and integrity? Just the act of asking this question shifts you from being a slave to the clock to becoming a student of timing, which is the first step toward mastering the ancient and powerful art of kairos. Time isn't your boss, it's your mirror. This simple reframing captures a seismic shift in how we might choose to relate to the hours and days of our lives. Modern productivity culture often treats time as a harsh taskmaster, an unyielding force that demands more from us than we can possibly give, constantly judging our output, our speed, our efficiency. We race against deadlines, we fret over schedules, we feel the oppressive weight of the clock ticking down on our ambitions. In this view, time is a tyrant to be feared and obeyed. The Stoics, however, saw something entirely different when they looked at the passage of time. They saw not a ruthless master, but a profound and honest teacher. Time for them was the great revealer. It doesn't command, it illuminates, it shows us with unflinching clarity what we truly value, what we're actually made of, and what ultimately matters when all the noise and hurry fade away. Marcus Aurelius, in the quiet of his own reflections, continually returned to this revealing power of time. He wrote, "In a way, the things you are pursuing and running after are going to elude you, but the things you do well will come back to you when you least expect it." Time shows you what is worth your energy and what is not. He's pointing to a patient truth. The frantic pursuits we think are so urgent, the approval, the status, the perfect plan, often vanish like mist over the long arc of time. But the quiet virtues we practice, the integrity we uphold, the kindness we offer, these are the things that time burnishes and returns to us, often in forms we couldn't have predicted. Time exposes the truth of our choices. It strips away the superficial and leaves behind only the substance of a life. A friendship built on convenience may not survive a decade, but one built on mutual respect and shared values will be strengthened by it. A career chosen for prestige might feel hollow in 20 years, but work chosen for purpose will continue to yield meaning. Time is the lens that brings our real priorities into sharp, undeniable focus. This perspective completely transforms our experience of life's inevitable challenges. When we see time as a tyrant, a difficult period, a career setback, a period of illness, a personal loss is just a brutal stretch to be endured, a theft of our precious hours. We white-knuckle our way through it, waiting for it to be over. But when we see time as a teacher, the same challenging period becomes a curriculum. It's not stealing from us, it's offering us lessons in resilience, in patience, in gratitude for what remains. The struggle itself becomes the training ground where our character is forged and revealed. We don't just get through the hardship, we are changed by it and ideally strengthened and deepened by it. The wrinkles on our face are not just signs of decay to be fought against. They are the etchings of 1,000 lessons learned, 1,000 laughs shared, 1,000 worries weathered. The slowing of our step isn't just a decline. It can be an invitation to a different, more deliberate and appreciative way of moving through the world. Consider the common fear of aging in our culture. A multi-billion-dollar industry is built on resisting it, hiding it, and fighting it every step of the way. This is the view of time as a tyrant stealing our youth and vitality. The Stoic view would be to see aging as the ultimate revealer. It strips away the non-essential. It asks us with increasing urgency what we will cling to when our physical strength wanes. Will it be our vanity, which is sure to disappoint, or will it be the wisdom we've accumulated, the depth of our relationships, the contributions we've made? The fear of aging is often a fear of being left with nothing but ourselves. But if we have spent our time building a self we can respect, a character of courage, justice, and wisdom, then growing older is not a loss, but a graduation into a different kind of wealth. The earned wisdom of a long life, the perspective that can only come from having seen cycles of boom and bust, joy and sorrow, is a form of wealth that no amount of Botox or financial success can ever purchase. So I want to leave you with a gentle but potent question to sit with. Set aside the to-do lists and the deadlines for just a moment and look into time's mirror. What has time been revealing to you lately, not about your productivity, but about your character? What has a recent challenge shown you about your own capacity for resilience? What has a moment of quiet shown you about what you truly miss when you're busy? What has a success or a failure revealed about your deepest values? The answer isn't found in frantic doing, but in quiet reflection. It's in allowing the teacher to speak and in having the courage to look clearly at what its long, patient lessons have written. Productivity relies on willpower. Stoicism relies on principle. This is the critical difference between how we typically approach our most ambitious, long-term goals and how the Stoics would advise us to sustain them. Willpower is a feeling. It's an emotional and psychological fuel that, like all feelings, is notoriously unreliable. It surges and it wanes. It's high on Monday morning after a restful weekend and nearly depleted by Wednesday afternoon. Basing a years-long project on something so volatile is like building a house on a foundation of sand. The first strong wind of difficulty, the first wave of boredom or discouragement, and the entire structure is at risk of collapse. This is why so many of us experience burnout on long journeys. We start with a burst of motivational energy, but when that initial excitement fades, we interpret the resulting friction as a sign that we're on the wrong path or that we lack what it takes. The Stoic approach bypasses this emotional roller coaster entirely. They understood that feelings are fickle but character is constant. Instead of asking, "Do I feel motivated?" they asked a more stable question: what is the principled thing to do? This is where the Stoic virtues transform from abstract ideals into the most practical engine for long-haul effort. Your long-term goal might be to build a business, write a book, get out of debt, or improve your health. The emotional drive for these, the desire for recognition, the fear of poverty, the wish for a better body will inevitably flicker. Some days you will wake up and feel none of it. But a commitment to virtue is not based on a feeling, it's based on an identity. If you connect your goal to the virtue of perseverance, then on the days you don't feel like working, you do it anyway, not because you're motivated, but because you wish to be a person who perseveres. If your project is an act of justice, perhaps creating a fairer workplace or serving an underserved community, then your effort is powered by a commitment to that principle, which remains rock solid even on the days you feel tired or unappreciated. Courage might be the virtue that drives you to have difficult conversations necessary for your project's success, even when you feel afraid. The emotion of fear is still there, but it is no longer in the driver's seat. Reason and principle are. Epictetus, who focused intensely on the discipline of action, gave us the perfect mental framework for this. He taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This simple instruction is a masterclass in sustainable effort. It's a two-step process. First, you define the person you aspire to be: the principled entrepreneur, the dedicated writer, the disciplined saver, the caring parent. You connect your long-term goal to your character, and then you act in accordance with that self-definition, regardless of the temporary emotional weather happening inside you. He goes further to address the inevitable hardships, advising, if you want to be steady, be steady. If you want to be virtuous, but make your choice consistently, not in a flickering way. This is the antidote to the flickering nature of willpower. Steady effort, chosen again and again because it aligns with who you have decided to be, creates a momentum that is far more powerful and far less exhausting than waiting for a surge of motivation to strike. Imagine two people training for a marathon. The first is powered by willpower. They are excited by the idea of crossing the finish line, getting the medal, posting the time on social media. But when the alarm goes off at 5 a.m. for a long run on a cold, rainy morning, that motivational fuel is gone. They hit the snooze button, telling themselves they'll go tomorrow. Their training is inconsistent, a constant battle between their goal and their feelings, and they are mentally drained before they even reach the starting line. Now consider the second person who runs on principle. They have decided that completing this marathon is an exercise in the virtue of discipline. On that same cold, rainy morning, they don't ask themselves if they feel like running. That question is irrelevant. They simply ask, what does a disciplined person do right now? The answer is clear. They get up and run. The run is no longer about the distant finish line. It is about affirming their character in this very moment. The action itself becomes its own reward. This is how principled progress avoids burnout. It finds satisfaction in the daily act of living virtuously, making the ultimate goal almost a secondary benefit. This approach completely reframes the experience of obstacles. In the willpower model, a setback, an injury, a missed workout, a bad day at work, is a disaster that drains your limited emotional reserves and makes quitting seem sensible. In the Stoic model, the setback is simply new material for practicing your virtue. An injury becomes an opportunity to practice patience and wisdom in recovery. A missed workout is a chance to recommit without self-flagellation, practicing the virtue of temperance by not being overly harsh with yourself. The difficulty doesn't derail you, it becomes part of the training itself. Your commitment is to the principle, not to a perfect, uninterrupted path. This is the essence of mental resilience. It's not about being a robot without feelings. It's about having a compass, your virtues, that keeps you moving in the right direction, even when the emotional weather makes it impossible to see the destination. To make this personal, I want you to bring to mind one long-term goal you are currently working toward. It could be professional, personal, creative, or related to your health. Now I want you to try the Stoic reframe. Look past the external outcome of that goal, the promotion, the finished manuscript, the savings account balance, the weight on the scale. Instead, ask yourself this: what Stoic virtue is this goal giving me the opportunity to practice, day in and day out? Is it perseverance through monotonous tasks? Is it courage in facing rejection or criticism? Is it justice in how I treat others on the way up? Is it temperance in managing my time and resources? Identify the single most relevant virtue. From now on, let that principle, not a fluctuating feeling, be your reason for showing up. Let the measure of your day be not how much you got done, but how well you embodied that virtue in your effort. You might find that the goal itself becomes easier to reach, because you are no longer carrying the exhausting weight of your own expectations, but are simply walking the path of the person you have chosen to become. Constraints don't restrict, they focus and liberate. This might sound like a complete paradox in our modern world, where the entire ethos of productivity is built on the idea of breaking through limits: more time, more resources, more options. We see constraints as the enemy, the barriers standing between us and our ideal, frictionless lives of maximum output. But the Stoics, and Epictetus in particular, turned this thinking completely on its head. They didn't just learn to tolerate limitations, they learned to see them as the very source of true freedom and creative power. This shift in perspective is perhaps one of the most practical and liberating gifts Stoicism offers us in an age of overwhelming choice. Epictetus, who lived with the immense physical and social constraints of being a former slave, became a master of this philosophy. His famous teaching, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens," is often quoted, but its deeper meaning is a radical call to stop fighting the walls of your container and to start building something beautiful within them. He isn't saying to grudgingly accept your lot. He's inviting you to discover that your lot, your specific set of limits, is actually the raw material for your freedom. Freedom isn't the absence of constraints, it's the masterful, purposeful, and joyful action you take within them. We can see the exhausting effects of the opposite approach all around us. The modern world offers us a paralyzing abundance of choice. We have infinite entertainment at our fingertips, countless career paths, an endless stream of information and opinions, and the pressure to craft a perfect life from this vast menu of options. This sounds like freedom, but it often feels like a form of quiet tyranny. Psychologists call it the paradox of choice. The more options we have, the more anxiety we feel about choosing the wrong one, and the less satisfaction we derive from the choice we finally make. A writer staring at a blank document with no deadline can be crippled by the possibility of writing anything. A designer with an unlimited color palette and every font ever created can spend hours tweaking without ever finishing. This is the overwhelm of the infinite. Now, introduce a constraint. Give that writer a firm word count and a deadline. Give that designer a strict brand guide with only 2 colors and 1 typeface. Suddenly, the paralysis vanishes. The constraint doesn't cage their creativity. It gives it a structure to push against, a defined space in which to play and innovate. The limitation becomes the catalyst that forces focus, prioritization, and ultimately breakthrough. This Stoic principle applies profoundly to our relationship with time. We often lament the limitations of time, that there aren't enough hours in the day, that we need more time to do all we want to do. We see the 24-hour day as a prison. The Stoic invitation is to see it as a canvas. Its finiteness is not its curse but its gift. If you had an endless amount of time, nothing would ever be urgent, nothing would ever be important, and nothing would ever be truly completed. The very fact that time is limited is what forces us to decide what is truly essential. It is the constraint that mandates clarity. Knowing your time is finite forces you to ask the most important questions. What is truly vital? What aligns with my deepest values? What can I let go of? A life without time constraints wouldn't be a life of boundless freedom. It would be a shapeless, drifting existence without momentum or meaning. The deadline, the closing hour, the setting sun, these are not our jailers. They are our guides, constantly reminding us to stop scattering our energy and to concentrate it on what matters most. Think about the most focused and productive periods of your own life. They likely weren't the times when you had endless free time. They were probably the times when you were under a tight constraint, a project deadline, a period where you had to care for a newborn, a week before a big trip where you had to get everything done. In those moments, you didn't have the luxury of distraction. Your options were artificially limited, and in that limitation, you found a superpower of focus. You became incredibly efficient, saying no to anything that wasn't critical. That wasn't a miserable state of deprivation. It was a state of flow and clarity. The Stoic practice is to bring that same intentional focus to your life, not just in emergencies, but every single day, by consciously embracing your limits rather than resenting them. Your limited time forces you to choose your priorities. Your limited energy forces you to choose your battles. Your limited skills force you to collaborate with others. Each limitation is not a flaw in the design of your life. It is a design feature that directs you toward virtue, connection, and purpose. So I want to offer you a reflective exercise that turns this philosophy inward. Instead of looking at your limitations as problems to be solved, I want you to try, just for a moment, to see one of them as a potential gift. Identify one personal limitation you often complain about. Maybe it's a lack of a specific skill, a financial constraint, a physical limitation, or even a personality trait you see as a weakness. Now, ask yourself a different question about it. How has this very limitation shaped you? Has your lack of natural athleticism led you to discover a deeper love for reading and knowledge? Has a budget constraint forced you to become more creative and resourceful, leading to solutions you never would have found with more money? Has a tendency to be shy pushed you to develop the virtue of being a deeper, more attentive listener in conversations? Our limitations aren't just obstacles on the path. In many ways, they are the path. They carve the unique channel through which the river of our life flows, giving it direction, force, and a character all its own. What if the thing you see as your greatest constraint is actually the hidden source of your greatest strength? So as we bring our exploration to a close, let's gather the profound shifts in perspective we've walked through together. We began by seeing time not as a cold metric to be optimized and filled, but as a precious, non-renewable gift to be used with wisdom and intention. We moved from an exhausting illusion of control, constantly trying to manage the unmanageable future, toward a liberating acceptance of what is, focusing our energy only on our own efforts and judgments. And we traded the frantic energy of hurry, always rushing toward the next thing, for the deep richness of presence, learning to fully inhabit the moment we are actually in. These aren't just philosophical ideas, they are fundamental reorientations that can transform your daily experience from one of lack and anxiety to one of abundance and purpose. At its heart, Stoic time management has nothing to do with the quantity of your output and everything to do with the quality of your character. It asks not how much you did, but how well you lived while doing it. Did you act with courage, with justice, with patience and kindness? These are the true measures of a day well spent. To leave you with a final thought from the emperor himself, Marcus Aurelius, who reminds us, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This isn't a call to live in fear, but to live with intense, purposeful presence, to treat each day as a complete life in miniature, an opportunity to practice virtue in every interaction, no matter how small. The real power of this philosophy lies not in understanding it, but in applying it. So I want to extend a simple invitation to you. Look back over the practices we've discussed, perhaps the evening reflection, the premeditation of obstacles, or the practice of gratitude for time itself, and choose just one. Just one to try out for the next 7 days. Don't try to overhaul your entire life overnight. Pick a single, small Stoic exercise and bring it into your routine. See how it changes the texture of your hours, the quality of your focus, and the depth of your calm. If this journey into a more meaningful relationship with time has resonated with you, and you'd like to explore more wisdom on how to live deeply rather than just productively, consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your time and your attention. May your days be filled with purpose, not